Welcome to Tournament in a Tea Break from Britwatch Sports. Sports in general, Brits in particular. This is Tournament in a Tea Break by Britwatch Sports. You're listening to Roz Satar, and I'm joined by Anita Stahl, who's writing for Tennis Review magazine this week. We're finally at the end of 12 days in the desert across both tours, and we have two finals with two compatriots contesting for that solid and impossible to lift glassware. Let's start with the women. Like many of our fellow sites, we diligently did the draw previews, only for Serena Williams to pull out and turn the draw completely upside down. Angelique Kerber only had to snap a 3-match losing streak in the desert, which she did at the expense of her fellow countrywoman Andrea Petkovic, but she met her end with one of our finalists as Elena Vesnina. Let's talk about Vesnina for a bit. Last year, she actually went out in the first round of qualies. Then she took out, this time around, not only Kerber, but Venus Williams on her way to crushing another informed player, Kristina Mladenovic. She's enjoying her tennis and she's really embracing the journey right now. Anita, I mean, you've seen her in press. What do you think?
I mean, she has an impossible amount of energy, it seems, but I don't know how that's focused. And also, we haven't seen her tested in the very high level matches yet. She's only got 2 career singles titles, and comparing that to where Kuznetsova's at, I just don't know if this energy will translate into focus and skill that she needs in the final under that pressure in the hot desert sun.
I mean, let's not forget that she's actually got like loads of doubles finals, and she actually talked at length about how she knows how to deal with that pressure because she's actually dealt with it in doubles. But it is kind of staggering. She's been on the tour for so long. When you actually say she's only got 2 singles, you're like, what, really?
Yeah, and it's different, that pressure. If you're on the court alone, you don't have someone to talk to center you, to bring you down, to do any of that mindful stuff. That's all on you if you're playing singles. So the fact that she is battle tested with doubles, I don't know that that's going to translate to this degree of pressure.
But there were 2 things that impressed me the most. Her ability to sort of keep that sense of panic down, because Venus actually had to warm herself up for that first round in the same way that she did with Jankovic, where the first set ran away from her completely, and then she began to pick up the pace. And Vesnina actually spoke about, oh my God, I don't want to be another Venus statistic. And she was the same with Mladenovic. I mean, even more so. I mean, the Frenchwoman's coming in on a great run of form, and she just was seeing the ball like a baseball. No, it was a baseball, a basketball. So she was just seeing the ball like a basketball.
Yeah, but she, in her talking about that fear of being another Williams victim, I don't know if that doesn't also kind of signal that what actually ended up happening is that Venus Williams lost that match rather than Vesnina actually taking it and running it, because those moments when Venus was at full form, nothing was going to stop her. And so it was only Venus slowing down ever that allowed Vesnina those breaks to get ahead.
I mean, that final game that went on for ages was a real test of character. And Vesnina's like, she's a joy, actually. She's such an articulate person when you talk.
Yeah.
When you talk to her, she has that kind of European accent. It's not even discernibly Russian. Mm-hmm. So I just feel that right now she's like, hey, whatever comes.
Yeah, and to her credit, when she was playing against Venus Williams, the crowd was entirely in Williams's favor, being sort of the hometown celebrity. That must have been quite a bit of pressure, even though it was just a semifinal match.
Yeah. Okay, well, she's going to face, of course, one of the more enduring characters of the tour, Svetlana Kuznetsova. She's always a firm fan favourite, both for a quirky sense of humour off the court and her post-match interviews, and also, funnily enough, in the past, for her fragility in closing out tight matches. But now, I mean, she's coming in with that amazing resurgent run to make the WTA finals. But in honesty, at what cost? I think it's fair to say her path this year to this point has been it started with a bit of a lacklustre start to the injury. It's fair to say that her path to this point it was a bit lacklustre at the start of the season, and she came in carrying an injury, but she actually feels that she's put that well and truly behind her. And I think as with Vesnina, she's got an appreciation of what she's achieved in her career, and now what victories to her mean now. I mean, What's your hot take on Kuznetsova?
Well, she's got 17 titles, so she's already going into this with an advantage. I think 17 career singles titles, and in press she's been so relaxed that after she beat Pliskova 7-6, 7-6, really tight tie breaks, when press asked her, so what are you going to do tomorrow? How hard are you going to train? She's like, oh, I'll go grocery shopping in the morning and I'll think about it. I'll see if I want to train. If I want to train, I train. If not, I go home, I watch the men's doubles. And I think that attitude is going to really help her, because that's authentic, relaxed, not going to crack under the pressure. And what's really impressed me with her at this tournament is her ability to adjust to the pace of her opponents in a way that Vesnina has not been able to keep up with.
Yeah, and I think I've got to say the conditions are going to really suit her tomorrow. It's going to be pretty hot. She's going to be able to smack the ball with topspin. I mean, Vesnina's been very great at the back of the court. She's also been very good when she's come forward. I think Kuznetsova's going to keep her pinned at the back, and I think will try and dictate as much as she can. I mean, my prediction, I think I actually went with Vesnina in 3, but the more I think about it now, the more I think it could easily be Svetlana in 3.
I'm thinking Svetlana in maybe even 2. And, so they've only played each other twice before, which is strange because they're Russians of almost the same age. Last time Svetlana won, that was 3 years ago on clay. And it's been, before that, it's 8 years since they played each other on hard court, and Vesnina did win that, but I don't know if that's at all relevant to what's happening tomorrow.
No, I think so much has gone under the bridge for both of them that I think, those kinds of results way back then, you just need to sort of scrub up. But I think it's actually got the makings of being an enthralling final.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible, and I think both of them at this point have quite a few fans in the crowd, that it's not going to be as one-sided as if we had Venus in a final here, or even just looking today, to briefly mention the men's, the Jack Sock and Roger Federer, that's where you had attention. It was Americans and people who love Federer, and that just makes for a better audience, I think, when it's not too one-sided. So it's going to be a good energy in the stadium, and we'll see who feeds off that better. Yeah.
Well, actually, that brings us on to the men now. Of course, it is an all-Swiss affair. The men's draw suffered probably more than the women's, with a total collapse of the top half of the draw. It's frustrating from a British point of view. Andy Murray had done everything right. He had a great win in Dubai under his belt. He arrived here early to acclimate. He even got around the doubles in with Dan Evans, but he was just totally discombobulated by Vasek Pospisil on the night. I mean, there's no other way of describing it. And to be honest with you, it was not unlike his early departure from the Australian Open against Misha Zverev. He just had absolutely no answer for quick pace serve and volley. And surprisingly, the court really responded to Pospisil's heavy serve. I would have thought in the night match, it might have cooled down, it might have been less top spinny, but Andy was just left high and dry. And what was even funnier, in a tragic sense, if we will like to quote Andrea Petkovic, he was closely followed in the Death Valley quarter by Novak Djokovic, who just had absolutely no read on Nick Kyrgios' serve. He had no idea where this thing was going. He had no idea where it was coming from. He just was all at sea. So his title defence disappeared. So score 1 for Roger Federer. Not only did he demolish Rafael Nadal in a much vaunted fourth round matchup that actually was, in my mind, a real anticlimax by the time it got here. And then he got a walkover into the semi-finals because of Nick Kyrgios pulling out very suddenly with suspected food poisoning. And I think it's fair to say he just hammered Jack Sock in the first set. I mean, Sock was, lost under the bed.
It was, yeah, I mean, I got there a minute late, and Sock was already just lost the first set, and I'm like, I didn't even think this match had started yet. And I look at the scoreboard, and I'm like, how is this even happening in a semifinal where you expect there to be some kind of test of wills? And that did happen in the second set then, when Sock started to come back and was actually starting to play tennis again. But it wasn't enough.
No, it was just too little too late for him. I mean, obviously we know he's going to meet Stan Wawrinka. Now, he's actually had a few tests. He's been tested by the demons of the heart court a couple of times. First by lucky loser Yoshihito Nishioka, who had such a beautiful, free-flowing style of tennis. I mean, you couldn't help but root for the guy. And it caused Wawrinka all kinds of conniptions. But finally, I think his experience and I think just the pressure of qualifying, losing the final round of qualifying, then going all the way through these qualifying rounds just took its toll on the Japanese player. And the same against Dominic Thiem. His focus though was absolutely rock solid today. I mean, in the last two matches, it's looked to me as though he's had real back trouble. He's looked stiff in his serving action. He hasn't looked natural at all. I don't think I've ever seen him look quite. He looks like I do when I get out of bed and I've like pulled my back. And then his backhand, that famous aggressive backhand. It's not fluid and balletic like Federer's. It comes with a punch. And against Nishioka, it was nothing more than just placed over the net. It only picked up its bite in the tiebreak when it needed to get him out of trouble. But today, my God, what a different story. He was just blasting winners all over the place. Now, I think gone are the days, when Stan would just capitulate to Federer. So how do you think this is going to go?
Well, it's interesting because, just to bring it back to the beginning when the draw came out for the men and we saw Andy Murray in one half, and then there was that quarter where you had
everybody.
And so at first there's you look at it and you think, okay, it's going to be Murray, and then, it's just going to be some of the top four. But when Murray lost to Pospisil and, Djokovic is out, and you're starting to think, oh, this could be anyone in the final. So it's odd that it came back around to okay, this was entirely predictable. Actually, it's Roger Federer and Stan Wawrinka. This is not novel to have these two finalists. But what's interesting is neither one are really their best right now. I mean, not just in terms of age, but stiff, the way they're practicing. They look lazy and sluggish. And, I mean, we haven't seen Federer really tested a little bit in the second set against Jack Sock. But overall, he just, with the walkover, he isn't really tested here in Indian Wells. He has the experience that he needs to be. I think he can muster up the tennis if he needs to. But we'll see if he could be bothered to in the match against Stan, because Stan isn't going to be bringing his best either, the way he's been moving.
No.
So I see it being kind of anticlimactic. I think Federer is going to take it 3 sets, but I don't know that it's going to be as exciting to watch as Vesnina Kuznetsova. No,
I agree. I suspect that Federer will run away with the first set, and then I think Stan will just dig deep and then will finally sort of meet his end in that final set. I think it's going to be not unlike the Australian Open actually, where Rafael Nadal had it on his racket and then kind of fell away. And I just feel that that's what's going to happen, but I also think it's not going to be quite as fluid. I mean, with the women, you've got two great doubles players who've got great court coverage and can be all over the place. That's not to say that Federer and indeed Wawrinka can't play a good all-court game, but
yeah,
I think they prefer to stay back at their age.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like these women are so young. They're about 30 now, each of them, but they still seem to have a lot more energy and excitement. Maybe it is because they're coming out of doubles and we're able to... I'm trying to think of the English word for it. German, schonen, like to kind of preserve their bodies a little bit, to not work too hard. And so I think the women are going into this with a little bit more energy than the men have. And more excitement too, because they haven't been in as many big finals.
I think closing out this particular month, I think actually, yet again, Indian Wells, though, is going to finish off with probably the better final matter than, say, Miami, because now we know that not only Serena is not going to be there, Andy Murray is definitely pulled out, and Novak Djokovic is doubtful if he hasn't already pulled out from the tournament. Once again, Miami looks to be like the poor relation, so Indian Wells will probably be the first and best test in the US hardcourt spring.
Yeah, and then I mean even Pospisil I think isn't playing Miami, or
no.
It's just not, he doesn't like the climate, it's not for him. So I think it's going to be anticlimactic coming from an exciting Indian Wells filled with plenty of drama, and we'll see if Kyrgios, if that was really just food poisoning, he should be just fine for Miami and can maybe really do some damage there with a relatively open draw. But we'll see.
We'll see. Well, thank you for joining me. You've been listening to Tournament and Tea Break with Anita Stahl and Ros Satar.